Hello, I'm Erin and I'm 34 years old. I'm a mother to a 10-year-old girl, and recently I finally got to stand up for her against my evil mother-in-law, and my mother-in-law had to pay the ultimate price for it. My husband Dylan and I got married right after we graduated from college, but waited until we were financially stable enough to actually have a child. Now, Dylan also has an older brother, Damien, who got married around the same time as us. Damien had a son, Joe, about a year before I had my daughter, Hazel. Since Joe was the first grandbaby to Dylan's mom, Camilla, he got pampered a lot, especially in the first year of his life. I saw the way that Camilla absolutely coddled and spoiled the ever-loving crap out of him, and I was actually kind of excited to have a child after that. I had no parents, considering they both passed away while I was in college, so I felt happy knowing that my child would have at least one grandmother who would spoil her senseless. Except that never happened. Camilla treated Hazel very differently, and it started right at birth. When Joe was born, Camilla visited him every day in the hospital. With Hazel, she saw her the day she was born and then never visited again. She barely paid Hazel any attention at all, like there were no gifts. Heck, there was never even a question about her well-being. Meanwhile, Joe still received all of her love and affection. Dylan and I were very hurt about her behavior, but we just chalked it up to her playing favorites with the first grandchild. But then, as the years passed, things only got so much worse. Because of their close ages, Joe and Hazel would spend a lot of time together, especially when Camilla would offer to babysit both of them to give the parents some time off. Joe and Hazel would do the same activities and play the same games, yet Camilla would go on praising Joe while she ignored Hazel, or she would downplay whatever Hazel did because it was never as good as Joe's. It used to boil my blood whenever I'd see Hazel run to Camilla to show her something she made or learned, and Camilla would just brush her off. But if Joe simply walked into the room, Camilla would be waxing poetry about his greatness. Now, Dylan and I made sure to make Hazel feel loved and appreciated, of course. In fact, we even went above and beyond to make sure that she was happy. But this went on for 10 years. I never confronted Camilla because I always managed to make Hazel feel better, and I stopped letting Hazel be around Camilla too much. That didn't stop Camilla from still being critical of Hazel. But Dylan usually handled the situation and would tell Camilla to be nicer. Anyway, everything came to a head on Camilla's birthday. She invited the entire family over to her place for lunch. As a gift, Hazel made Camilla a painting of the two of them in the park, playing on the swings. That day was the only day that the two of them spent time together without anyone else, and it clearly had a special place in Hazel's heart. I knew that Hazel would be devastated if Camilla did not appreciate it. But most of all, I knew that I'd lose my head if Camilla didn't. Camilla greeted us at the door when we arrived. "Happy birthday, Camilla!" Thanks. How are you guys doing?" "Everything's going great. How are you doing?" "I couldn't be happier. My family's here and we're celebrating me." "Speaking of celebrating you, Hazel made you something." "Did you now, Hazel?" "Yes, Grandma. It's not very pretty or anything." "Darling, it's gorgeous. Just give it to Grandma. I'm sure she'll appreciate it." "Yeah, show me." "Here you go. Happy birthday, Grandma." "Oh, it's a painting. You know, Joe just made me a painting too, and let me tell you, that boy is great with his colors." "Okay, but do you like Hazel's painting for you?" "Yes, I mean, it's quite okay. I wouldn't say it was worth putting in the fridge, because if I did that, then Hazel would be put to shame when anyone saw Joe's painting." "Okay, that's enough. Hazel, go play with Joe. We need to talk to Grandma." "Yes, Dad." "Why are you always so mean to Hazel, Camilla?" "I'm not being mean to her. I didn't say a mean word against her painting at all, even though I had so many things to critique about it." Why are you constantly comparing her to Joe? She's done nothing but try her hardest to impress you, and all you do is make her feel like crap for it. I'm not comparing anyone to anyone. All I'm doing is stating facts. And the fact is that Joe is better than Hazel at most things. Look, I can't tell you what opinions to have, but the least you could do is keep them to yourself. Every time you compare Hazel to Joe, she feels so sad and upset with herself. If you keep glorifying her every deed, she's never going to learn. She can always deal with some criticism, and in fact, learning to deal with criticism is a very important life lesson. Sure, but I never see you criticize anything that Joe does. That's so unfair to Hazel. Life's unfair. Get used to it. You know what? Since you're so hell-bent on comparing Hazel and Joe together, I simply won't let you meet Hazel. She doesn't deserve a grandmother who doesn't love her and constantly makes her feel bad about herself. You can't stop me from seeing my grandchild. Son, say something. No, Mom, Erin's right. You need to apologize and show us that you're willing to treat your grandchildren equally. And only then we'll let you see Hazel. Camilla couldn't believe that we were standing up to her. We called Hazel back to us and we left the party shortly after that. We did get a few texts from some family members telling us that we were jerks for leaving so soon and causing a scene, but none of them saw how crumpled Hazel's face looked when Camilla dismissed her painting altogether and compared it to Joe's. Dylan and I ignored all the texts we got about us leaving, and eventually people stopped bothering us. About a week and a half after Camilla's birthday, Camilla finally called me. I was tempted to not answer the call, but decided to be the bigger person and give her a chance. Hello, Erin. Hi, Camilla. What's going on? Oh, nothing. Just wanted to call and see if you were still mad at me. I wouldn't say that I'm mad, but I am upset with you. Look, I've been giving it some thought, and I realize that I may just have been a tad bit mean to Hazel. A tad bit? You were a lot mean, to the point where Hazel simply doesn't do anything on her own because she's so worried about how bad she is. Oh my, that is not what I wanted to do at all. Yeah, so maybe you owe her an apology more than me. I agree. Anyway, I was only calling you because I had an idea of how I could make it up to her. Oh, really? How? Well, I was thinking of taking Joe on a ski trip in the first week of next month. I've already rented a lodge and we'll be going by car, so there's plenty of room for Hazel if she wants to join in. You want to take her on a trip? Just her? Well, I figured it would be a great way for us to bond and for me to make amends for how rudely I treated her. I don't know if that's a good idea. Why not? You wanted me to make amends, and when I'm trying, you have an issue with it? Look, in our presence itself, you treat her so badly. Who's to say that you won't treat her the same or even worse when Dylan and I aren't around? I know this is a trip that you want to use as a way to make up to Hazel, but this is a big jump. Are you trying to say that you don't trust me? I'm her grandmother. Why would I hurt her in any way? I'm not saying that I don't trust you. All I'm saying is that I'm worried that if you do or say something unintentionally mean, no one is going to be there to comfort Hazel. I promise you that I won't let anything happen to Hazel. I swear that I really want to use this trip as a way for me to make up to Hazel. I'll talk to Dylan about this and I'll get back to you by the end of the week if that's okay. Yes, of course. Take all the time you need. I was definitely leaning towards not letting Hazel go, but I knew that was not a decision I could make on my own. So that evening, Dylan and I discussed how we felt about letting Hazel go. On one hand, we knew what Camilla had been like for years, and the chances of her treating Hazel any differently was slim to none. But at the same time, this was the first time that Camilla made an effort to actually bond with Hazel. Dylan and I didn't want to take away Hazel's only chance to bond with Camilla. We knew that Hazel still loved her grandma, and we didn't want her to think that we weren't going to let her do certain things just because Camilla was involved. We also talked to Hazel and asked her how she would feel about going on a trip with Camilla and Joe, and Hazel was very excited about it, so it was decided that she would go. Camilla seemed very happy that we decided to let Hazel go with her. She promised us that she would take good care of Hazel, but something in my gut told me otherwise. So before Hazel left, I gave her an old phone of mine and told her to hide from Grandma at all costs. I told her to keep it on her at all times and to only use it when she absolutely needed to call either me or her dad. I prayed that she would not have to use the phone, but of course things did not go that way. Just a day after she left, I got a call from Hazel. I answered the phone hoping that Hazel just missed me, and that was the reason for her call. Mom? Hazel, sweetie, how's my baby doing? Are you having fun? Mom, I'm so scared. What? What's wrong, honey? Why are you crying? It's so cold. I want to come home. Okay, honey, where's Grandma? Are you lost? See if you could find a ranger and they can guide you back to your lodge. But I'm standing in front of the lodge. I'm so scared and cold and hungry, Mom. Please, please come get me. What? Okay, wait. Honey, I need you to calm down and tell me what happened. I don't know what happened. After all of us came back from skiing, Grandma got mad at me and stole all my warm clothes and locked me out of the lodge. I've been asking her to let me in for so long, but she isn't listening. What? Why would she do that? Hold on, sweetie. Your dad's going to get you some help. Why don't you tell me why Grandma was mad? Are you and Dad going to come and pick me up? Of course, sweetie, but it will take us a while to get there. In the meantime, we'll have someone else take you to a safe place and give you something warm to wear, and probably even hot chocolate. Okay, please make it fast. It's so cold. I know, sweetie. Now tell me why Grandma got mad. Well, Joe and I were both skiing for the first time, and Joe was struggling to keep his balance while I could do it really well. You could? Sweetie, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you. Thanks, Mom. But it really wasn't that hard. Hush. You don't have to be so humble about it either. Okay. But Joe started crying after seeing me do well, and after our instructor kept praising me. Grandma got mad at me after that, and she didn't talk to me until we got home, and then she just threw me out. What? I'm going to give that woman a piece of my mind. Do me a favor, sweetie, and do not tell your grandma that I'm coming there, okay? Yes, Mom. Sweetie, your dad's saying that there's a ranger approaching you right now. Can you see him? I see someone approaching me. Ask him what his name is and ask him what his favorite drink is. If he says anything else but Sam and hot chocolate, ignore him, okay? Yes, Mom. Okay, his name is Sam, and he loves hot chocolate. Should I go with him? Yes, sweetie. Take care and keep me updated, okay? Yes, Mom. My heart was racing as soon as Hazel ended the call. How could Camilla do that to a child? I was 100% sure that Camilla would not even care to look for Hazel because she'd be too wrapped up in taking care of Joe. Dylan and I grabbed our warm coats and jackets and made the 3-hour drive to where they were staying. The entire drive there, the only thing we were focused on was making sure that our little girl was safe. I was still waiting for a call from Camilla to at least tell me what happened, but I got nothing. Hazel kept texting me every 15 minutes to let me know that she was fine. Getting those messages eased Dylan's and my worries, but that only gave rise to another emotion, anger. We were furious at Camilla for putting our daughter's life at risk in that manner. If I hadn't sent Hazel with the phone, what were the odds that she'd be able to find a ranger herself? I was willing to bet that they were very slim. By the time Dylan and I reached it, it was starting to get dark. I told Dylan to find Hazel and wait in the car for me while I dealt with Camilla. As I approached Camilla's lodge, I heard Camilla's loud laughter, and that only made my blood boil even more. I knocked on the door and waited for her to open it. Camilla looked very surprised to see me there. Erin, what are you doing here? Where's Hazel? Oh, she's just out and about somewhere. You mean you don't know where she is? You were supposed to be looking after her. I sent her here in your care. Look, nothing bad ever happens around her, and I'm sure she's safe. Is this your way of making things up with Hazel? You just leave her alone to wander in a place that's cold and unknown to her? Why don't I call a ranger, and I'm sure they'll know about where she is. Yeah, there's no need for that. We're here because Hazel is at one of the rangers' cabins. So she's safe, and you just came out here to yell at me? You didn't even seem bothered. Are you nuts? My child could have gotten hurt, and you wouldn't have known. Do you love Joe so much that you were willing to put Hazel's life in danger? What are you talking about? Hazel told me about what happened when you were skiing today. You're the one that pampered Joe so much that he can't stand it when he can't be perfect at something. You beat that value into Hazel but refused to do it with Joe. You clearly have a favorite, and while I have no problem with that, I do want to know why you were willing to let my daughter freeze out here in the cold because Joe threw a fit about not being able to ski as well as Hazel. That was not the case at all. Do not even try to lie to me. I spoke to your skiing instructor and he corroborated Hazel's story. Fine. If you must know, I hate that Hazel looks like the spitting image of you. Excuse me? I do not like you one bit, and I hate that my only granddaughter looks nothing like my son. Joe looks exactly like his dad, and that is why I treat him so well. So you treat my daughter like crap because of the way she looks, which is something she had no control over? She deserves it anyway. The way she was gloating today was unacceptable. I had to teach her a lesson. You know what? If I keep talking to you, I'm afraid that I'm going to get violent. I will deal with this in another way. I don't want you near my family ever again. Camilla didn't even bother following me as I went towards the car where Dylan and Hazel were, and the thought that Camilla didn't even take anything I said seriously made me angrier. After I made sure that Hazel was not harmed in any way, Dylan and I took her out for dinner and we talked to her to make sure that she wasn't traumatized in any way. Thankfully, the rangers that kept her company were really sweet and distracted her enough to not think about what Camilla had done to her. That night, after we put Hazel to bed, Dylan and I decided that we were going to speak to a lawyer and figure out if we could press charges against Camilla for what she did. Dylan and I spent the next week gathering information, and then we decided to file a case against Camilla for child neglect and ask for her grandparents' rights to be taken away. It didn't take long for Camilla to call me and yell at me for filing a case against her. What did you do? You filed a case against me? Hello, Camilla. I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. Quit the sarcasm and answer me right this second. I told you that I was going to deal with you another way. You filed a case against me for child neglect and you're asking for my grandparents' rights to be stripped away? I see nothing wrong with that. I didn't do anything wrong. You can't ruin my name and reputation like this. You endangered my daughter because of your childish mentality. You bullied her for years only because she looked like me. It's okay to hate me, but to bully a child? That's unacceptable. You're only going to be paying the price for what you did. I didn't think it was this bad. You could have talked to me about this instead of charging me with a crime. I did try to talk to you, Camilla, and when I finally thought that you listened to me, you went ahead and put my daughter's life at risk. I don't think that any more talking would have changed the way you behaved towards Hazel. Fine. Charge me with whatever you want. You can't prove a single thing. Kids make things up, so there's no way to prove whatever Hazel says. You know that the lodge you rented had many security cameras around it, right? Not to mention, we have the rangers to confirm our story and many witnesses. You're going to go down. I'm sorry. Please, I promise I'll be better. I doubt that. Why don't you use this time to think about how to be a better person and why what you did was wrong? I'll see you in court. Nothing made me feel better than hearing Camilla beg me to go easy on her and drop the charges. But dropping the charges would not only tell Camilla that I would let these kinds of behavior go, but it would also tell my daughter that I wasn't there for her. And I would never send either of those messages. Over the next few weeks, I went to court a lot. The jury and the judge looked appalled when they heard what Camilla had done to Hazel. It's safe to say that Camilla had a very hard time defending herself. Because she didn't actually cause any harm to Hazel, she was charged with a pretty heavy fine and was given a restraining order from my family. She was also stripped of her grandparent rights. It was so satisfying to watch Camilla break down when she heard her verdict. I don't know why she was sobbing so much when she had no issue making my daughter feel the brunt of her anger. Nobody in the courtroom felt an ounce of pity for her, and that, in my book, was a win. Camilla did call us again after the hearing, but Dylan told her to stay away from us for good. She once again cried and begged us to let her make things right with Hazel again, but why would we let her do that again when she showed us what making things right was, according to her? Not to mention my daughter absolutely hates Camilla and doesn't want anything to do with her. Now, don't you worry about my daughter's newfound talent. After everything with Camilla was wrapped up, Dylan and I took Hazel to another place where she could ski as much as she wanted, and boy did she do that. The three of us remained in the snow all day, and I had to practically drag Hazel back into our cabin after the sun began to set. I'm just glad that that one experience with Camilla did not ruin something this good for Hazel. Things are slowly starting to get better at home, though. Joe's dad, Damien, called us to apologize for what happened and has put Joe through therapy so he can nip whatever bad habit that Camilla has instilled in him. It's safe to say that everyone in Dylan's family has gone low to no contact with Camilla. I'm excited to see where life takes us from here on. One thing's for certain, I am never letting anyone ever make my daughter feel like she's lesser than anyone else. Hello, my name's Abigail. I'm 28 years old. My life is kind of a mess right now, but I have some free time to spare and I really need to get things off my mind. So here I am. Let me begin by introducing you to my husband Chris and I. We met when we were in college, and the day that we met, I just had this gut feeling that we were meant to be together. We started dating a month after we met, and our relationship got more and more serious until one day, about 2 years after graduating, we decided that we wanted to get married. We invited all of our closest friends and family for our wedding, and we had a blast. Since then, our relationship has only gotten stronger. That being said, the incident I want to talk to you about today is one of the many reasons that we have such a strong relationship. You see, Chris and I are very big on family. We came from tight-knit families, and we both have parents who adore us and still pamper us even though we're adults. Every other weekend, we make the drive to meet our parents, to spend quality time with them. I have one sibling, and once every 2 months we go to visit them or they come over to us. As for Chris, he had a sister. I say had because she was considered the black sheep of the family. She ran away from home when she was 22, and Chris didn't remember much of what happened because the event was traumatic to him. His parents did eventually tell him what happened, but he never really opened up to me about it, and I never pushed because I didn't think it was my place to know. Anyway, one Saturday, Chris got a call from an unknown number while the both of us were enjoying our day. He picked up the call and immediately went stiff. He exited the room and came back after 15 minutes with the widest smile on his face. "You're never going to believe who just called me." "Who? Remember how I told you I had a sister?" "Yeah, you lost all contact with her because she ran away and refused to talk to your family, right?" "Yeah. Well, she called me." "Oh my gosh, what did she say?" "She said that she was in town and asked if she could visit us tomorrow." "That's wonderful. Tell me that you said yes." "Of course I did. My sister and I were very close when I was younger, and then she just disappeared." "Didn't your parents ever tell you what happened?" "Well, apparently my sister was a handful to handle. She lived with my parents until she was 22 and stole from them constantly." Oh, that's a bit concerning. Yeah, and she dropped out of college and never found a job, which was why she was stealing. You know, my parents are lovely and very patient, but at some point they just snapped and asked her to move out. Right, and I can't imagine what your sister must have done to upset them so much that they kicked her out. I don't remember the specifics of it, but all I remember is that there was a lot of screaming on Ellen's part, and my parents tried their best to be gentle with her. Ooh, that must have been rough on you too. Yeah, it sucked not having my best friend around. I tried to get in touch with her so many times, but she just never responded to me. Eventually, I gave up. So trust me when I say that I was beyond shocked to hear her voice on the phone when she called. I can imagine. I'm so happy you're going to finally be reunited. I hope that everything's going well with her now. Me too. She told me she has a son, which means that I'm an uncle. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. How old is he? He's 2, and he'll be coming to see us tomorrow with her. I'm so excited to meet both of them. How about we hit the grocery store and buy some things to cook with for tomorrow? Let's go. While I was super happy for Chris to be reunited with his sister, I couldn't entirely ignore the information he had dumped on me about her. I felt like something was going to go wrong at that point, but I decided to just let things play out and figure things out as they came. Chris and I spent the rest of the day prepping for the next day's meal. Chris was so excited, and his excitement rubbed off on me too. When it came time to sleep, both of us were too anxious to fall asleep. But finally the next morning came around, and Ellen was at our door at 10:30 a.m. Oh my God, Ellen, hi, it's been so long. How's my baby brother? Give me a hug. I missed you so much. I'm doing great. I missed you too. How are you? And how's the little guy? He's so cute. I'm okay. Life's been a little tough on me, but it is what it is, you know. And little guy's name is Fred. Hi, Fred. Aren't you a cutie? Oh, Ellen, this is my wife, Abigail. You're married? And to such a beautiful woman. Good catch, Chris. I know, right? I tell her every day how lucky I am to have found her. Oh, that's enough. It's an absolute pleasure to meet you, Ellen. Why don't you and the baby come in? You guys have such a beautiful home. Thank you. It took a lot of hard work to get here. I can tell. So, Ellen, what brings you back to town, if you don't mind me asking, that is? Oh, no, it's okay. I'm kind of not in a good place right now. What do you mean? Well, the man I married, Fred's dad, is an alcoholic and very abusive. I couldn't stand living with him anymore, so I ran away with just a few clothes and enough food to last Fred and me for a few days. What? That's horrible. Yeah, well, I came here to ask you for a favor, Chris. Tell me, I'll help you in any way that I can. Do you think both of you could set me up here just for a few months until I can get back on my feet? This is the last place that my husband will come looking for me because he doesn't know where my hometown is. I would love to let you live with me, but this is a decision that Abigail and I must make together. Abigail, what do you say? You don't have to feel obliged to let me stay here. Maybe you could just help me out financially until I find myself a job, and I can take care of myself. I'll live in a motel or something. That's absolute nonsense. I'm not letting you and your child stay in the motel. We have a place here in your family. Of course we'll help you out. Really? Of course. Besides, I'm sure that Chris would love to catch up on all the years he missed out with you. Thank you guys so much. You have no idea how much this means to me. Anytime, Ellen. Now, why don't you go wash your hands and meet us at the dinner table for lunch? I was genuinely happy to be able to help Ellen. I couldn't imagine what she must have gone through and how much she must have struggled. So even if there was a nagging thought in my brain to be careful considering her past, I let it go because I wanted to believe that she was a changed person. Boy, was I wrong. The first month that Ellen stayed with us, she essentially lobbed her baby off to us. She barely took care of the child and sometimes even forgot to feed it. I didn't say anything, but Chris and I did take over the childcare duties after that. I arranged and paid for a babysitter for the baby when Chris and I were at work. When we got back home, we took turns making dinner and taking care of the baby. During all of this, Ellen just sat around and watched TV. When we confronted her about her lack of care, she told us that she was stressed and seeing the baby only made her panic because the memories of her husband would flood back into her mind. We believed her and told her that we would help in any capacity that we could. The second month is when the stealing began. Now, Ellen wasn't stealing anything big like money, but it was more so the food and my things. Chris and I like to label our food sometimes when we really want to have something. If there's a label on a Tupperware containing food, then nobody but that person gets to eat it. We explained that to Ellen, but she never cared. She'd eat the food and leave the empty containers in the fridge. Aside from that, I began to notice that some of my clothes and my makeup began to go missing. I knew that Ellen was stealing my clothes because I'd find my clothes in her laundry basket. And the makeup because, well, she asked me to clean her room, and when I did, I found it there. I confronted her about this, and she told me that she had no money and she felt too embarrassed to ask me for things, so she just took them. I told her that I had no issue with her borrowing things as long as she asked me, and if she wanted, I could help her find a job. She agreed to let me help her find a job, but she never went to any of the interviews I helped her get. By the third month of her living with us, I was thoroughly exhausted. She would leave her messes everywhere and demand that I clean it up for her. She treated me like I was her maid, and it irritated me to no extent. She would yell at me if she thought the house was not clean enough, or if I didn't do it on time. She also made me the nanny of her child, but that wasn't any different from her behavior from the start. I only held my tongue for that long because I was respectful of her suffering. But eventually, I hit my limit and I told Chris one night that we needed to talk. Chris, we need to talk. I have a feeling that I already know where this is going. Yeah, well, I love you and I love your family, but Ellen's a nightmare. I wouldn't put it that harshly, but yes. I'm not saying that she needs to leave or anything. She just needs to find a job. I know. She's been here for what, 2 months now? And I haven't seen her make an effort to look for a job at all. And I've tried to help her too. I've set her up for interviews at many places, but she never showed up for them. Yeah, not to mention she's a horrible guest. Like, I love her and all, but she's filthy, and it bothers me because you know how much I love my spaces to be clean. Yes, honey, I try my best to keep things clean for you, but sometimes I'm just so exhausted from work that I can't. I've told Ellen to pick up after herself, but she just got snarky with me. I know. I got dished that same snarkiness when I asked her to do the same thing. Besides, you have nothing to apologize for. We are not supposed to be telling her how to be a good guest. And it does not help that she's so mean. Was she always this way growing up? She wasn't this way with me, at least, but I guess I see why my parents threw her out, as mean as that sounds. It's truly a miracle that your parents put up with her for years. I know I can't do that, Chris. I don't want to throw a single mother onto the streets, but unless she shows me that she's at least making an effort to find her footing, I'm afraid that I will have to kick her out. How about this? We give her another month to find herself a job, and if she doesn't, we'll ask her to leave. Are we bad people for doing that? Absolutely not. I know she came to me because she knew my parents would not help her out in any way. Sometimes some people just need a little tough love. While Chris and I did decide to give Ellen a deadline, we still finally felt guilty about that decision. So we put off having that conversation with her for as long as we could. We bore with all of Ellen's torture because deep down we still felt horrible for her. That was until one day after we came back from a trip to my parents, we walked in to find that Ellen had completely stripped our living room of its previous decor and brought in new and gaudier stuff. She repainted the walls too, and even managed to get paint on the couches. I will admit that I lost my temper after that. What did you do? I just spruced up your boring and bland house. You called it beautiful before. Ugh, that was just me buttering you guys up so you'd just let me live with you. You can't just redesign a part of our house without our consent. I live here now and I need to be comfortable too. You do not live here, Ellen. You're only staying with us temporarily. It'll be another long while before I move out. You have no idea how hard my life's been, and having a space where I feel comfortable will really help me get into a better mental space. Do not use your mental health as an excuse to rip apart my home and change it. You want to have better mental health? Find a job and get yourself your own place. How dare you speak to me like that? Ellen, I've tried to be as nice as I can towards you, but you've been crossing lines ever since you came here. I haven't said a word, but this is my last straw. Oh, boo-hoo. What are you going to do? Throw me out? How will you be able to live with the fact that you threw a single mother and her child out of your house and onto the streets? I'm not going to do that immediately. I'm giving you exactly 1 month to find yourself a job. You can't do that. Even if I work for a month, that's not going to be enough to get myself a place to rent. Yeah, I don't expect you to do that. What I do expect is for you to get a job, start saving, and start taking care of yourself and your child. You cannot rely on Chris and I to take care of you. You're a monster. Chris, tell her. You can't let your sister struggle this way, right? No, Ellen, Abigail's right. We've been nothing but nice to you, but you've taken advantage of that. You either agree to our terms or we're going to have to kick you out. You are not the man I thought you were. You were supposed to have my back. You were my only family. This is like Mom and Dad all over again. Ellen ran to her room and slammed the door after her. I couldn't believe the fact that she was acting like a teenager. Chris and I spent the next week redoing our living room and practically ignoring Ellen. Ellen never apologized to us, but after about 2 weeks of us giving her our ultimatum, she told us that she got a job. Of course, we were not naive enough to just believe her, so we had her show us her offer letter, and once we confirmed that she was indeed working, we went back to treating her as normally as we could. Over the next 2 months, we took over half of Ellen's earnings and saved it away so she could have enough for a deposit on an apartment. We were still supplying most of the groceries for her and her child, by the way, and her treatment of us remained unchanged. When Ellen finally had enough money saved up, we told her that it was time for her to start searching for a place of her own because she could not live with us forever. Then came all the excuses that Ellen could muster up. Her trauma was back. She was scared to live alone. She was bad with money. She had no money. Her shaman told her it was an inauspicious time to move out. You name it. And she made it an excuse. When she realized that we were not buying her excuses, she dug her heels in and flat out refused to move out. Chris and I were losing our minds and our patience to deal with her. Every day we would carefully approach her about helping her search for an apartment, and every day she would yell at us for not treating her like family before telling us that she was going to stay with us however long she wanted. Just when Chris and I had reached our breaking point with her and were considering going the legal route to evict her, we got a knock on the door one day. It was early in the morning and I happened to be in the kitchen while Chris was still taking his shower. Ellen was asleep in her room. I opened the door and was surprised to see 2 cops standing there. Hello, officers. Is everything all right? Hi, Mom. I'm Detective Ryan, and this is my partner, Peter. We've received a tip that Ellen Smith is staying here with a child. Is that correct? Yes, but why are you asking? Ma'am, what is your connection to Miss Smith? She's my husband's sister. When did she show up to your place? About 6 months ago. I'm sorry, but why are you asking me questions about Ellen? Is something wrong? So you have no idea about what's going on in Ellen's life? Did she tell you why she came over to stay with you? Well, my husband lost contact with her when he was 13, And she only got in contact with us 6 months ago. She said that she had an abusive alcoholic husband who she was running away from. She asked my husband and me if we could help her by letting her stay with us, and naturally we agreed because we couldn't let her and her baby starve outside when we had plenty of room in our house. I see. Well, I'm afraid that you've been lied to. What do you mean? Honey, who's at the door? Oh, what are the cops doing here? They've been asking me questions about Ellen, and they just told me that we've been lied to. What do you mean, officers? What my partner means is that the baby that Miss Smith has with her is not hers. What do you mean? You see, your sister has a history of criminal activities. Granted, they are all petty crimes, but they are crimes nonetheless. 3 months ago, she got into a fight with one of her neighbors, and in an attempt to get revenge on her, she stole the neighbor's child when they weren't looking. Oh my God, I swear we had no idea about any of this. We were only helping her because she was family. Don't worry, we believe you. We just need your help finding out where she is right now. And of course, we will need you to come down to the station and give us your statements. Of course, we'll do anything. Ellen's currently sleeping in her room, and if you're worried about the baby, he's completely fine. Do you mind if we step in and make our arrest? Of course. Please, come in. The two cops walked into our house as quietly as they could. We led them to Ellen's bedroom, and they told us to wait outside. Chris and I stood by each side of the door and peered in to see what was happening. Ellen's eyes flew open as soon as the officers stepped foot into her room. She grabbed the bedside lamp and threw it at one of the officers, injuring him. When the second officer attempted to hold her down, she threw her head back and hit him square in the nose. He hunched over in pain, which allowed her to get herself free. She ran towards the door to move out, but as soon as she stepped foot outside her door, Chris grabbed her by her arms and put her in a light chokehold. She looked at me with so much anger. I was shaking. Thankfully, the officers recovered enough to come to us and put Ellen in her handcuffs. Ellen kept yelling profanities at us for ratting her out and being a crappy family. After the cops took Ellen away, Chris and I were a shaking mess. We couldn't believe what had happened. We knew that Ellen had been problematic, but for her to actually kidnap a child and take shelter in our home? That was unacceptable. So of course we testified against her wherever we could. Not only did she put us at risk by taking shelter in our home, but she was also stupid enough to treat us like crap while doing it. Ellen was charged with kidnapping, resisting arrest, and assaulting a police officer. Chris and I had to attend the trials, and we were called to the stand several times to testify. Each time we did, Ellen would throw us the nastiest glare. The only reason I felt safe was because she was in handcuffs, and there were security guards all around the room. Anyways, Ellen was sentenced to 3 years in prison and was also given community service hours. We also got a restraining order against her. The baby was returned to his mother and peace was restored. Aside from that, Chris and I also decided to move because we felt unsafe knowing that she knew our location. So that's where we're at right now. Chris and I are planning to move states and start fresh somewhere far away from here. Hopefully, we never have to run into Ellen ever again. It's been a good few scary months, but Chris and I are slowly going back to being the way we usually were. Thankfully, we had a lot of support from our family and friends. One thing's for sure, next time, we're not believing any estranged family member. Thank you for listening to my story. Hello, my name is Nancy. I'm 27 years old and I just got divorced. The divorce, of course, came with a nice cold serving of revenge on my husband and my horrible mother-in-law. Let me start off by telling you about my ex-husband, Lucas. I met him at the company that I was interning at during my last year of college. We were together for another 3 years before Lucas proposed to me and we got married. Now, my relationship with Lucas had a lot of ups and downs. Lucas was a mama's boy, which is fine on its own, but he takes it to an extreme. He has to call his mother, Elaine, every single day or he gets cranky. Elaine coddled him so much that he literally cannot do any household chores, nor does he have any basic survival skills. It was an issue at first, but I learned to live with it. Aside from that, Elaine made it very clear from the day that she met me that she hated me. She would constantly taunt me and insult me. She would belittle all my achievements, and whenever I asked her why she was treating me that way, she would tell me that I wasn't good enough for her son. Lucas never stood up for me even when Elaine said the meanest things to me in front of him. We would fight about it a lot, but he would always tell me that he could never go against his mother. Eventually, I just started letting her insults roll off my back, and when she realized that her words weren't affecting me like they used to, she stopped talking to me altogether. About a year after we got married, Lucas and I decided to start trying for a child. I even quit my job because I wanted to have a stress-free pregnancy. But after a year of trying, I never got pregnant. I could tell that it began to affect Lucas, but I could not approach him about it because I was feeling really upset with myself for not being able to get pregnant. So to get my mind off of the whole pregnancy thing, I decided to go back to working. 3 months after I started working again, I began to feel really sick. I didn't think much of it, but when I started to feel worse, I went to the doctor. After some blood tests, the doctor told me that I was pregnant. I was over the moon. I was so excited to tell Lucas about everything that the doctor told me that I went ahead and made Lucas his favorite dinner. When he finally came home that night, I sat him down and told him that I had something to tell him. "Babe, I have something kind of big to tell you." "What is it?" "I'm really tired, so could you make it a little quick?" "Yeah, of course. So you know how I've been feeling weird and nauseous these past few days?" "Yeah." "Well, I just thought that I must have had acute food poisoning, so I went to the doctor. They couldn't figure out what was wrong, so they asked me to get some blood tests done." "Oh, no. Is everything all right?" "Yes, everything's actually more than fine because the blood tests revealed that I am actually pregnant." "What? Oh my God, that is great news." "I know. All the trying finally worked." "You know, I didn't tell you this, but I was actually beginning to give up all hope." "I know. I felt the same way too. I felt so inadequate. I know it's not good to reduce my worth to my reproductive capabilities, but I felt so bad that I couldn't do the one thing that a woman is supposed to do." "Oh, but everything's worked out fine right now. We did it." "We really did. The doctor did warn me that my pregnancy is a high-risk one, so we should be cautious and careful." "Oh, don't you worry about a thing, sweetheart. I'll take proper care of you." "We have to tell everyone. We have to plan a baby shower and a gender reveal." "Slow your horses, darling. We only just found out about the pregnancy. Why don't the both of us celebrate this first and then we'll tell everyone about it? Let's focus on getting you through your first trimester without any hitches, all right?" "Yes, of course. I made us some dinner. Shall we eat?" "Absolutely." My pregnancy was really hard on me after that. I was constantly either nauseous or puking. I hated it. But that was the price that I had to pay to have the child I so desperately wanted. Thankfully, Lucas had been a great help, and I wouldn't have been able to make it through the first 4 months without his help. When my symptoms finally settled down, Lucas and I decided to throw me a baby shower. We invited all of our closest friends and family, and of course Elaine was there too. I tried my best to avoid her throughout the party, but she eventually cornered Lucas and me, so I had no choice but to talk to her. "Congratulations on the pregnancy, Nancy." "Thanks a lot, Elaine." "How's pregnancy been treating you so far?" "Oh, she's been throwing up every morning and can barely get out of bed on most days." I thought it was concerning, but the doctor told me that this was normal considering that it is a high-risk pregnancy. Yikes! But it must feel rewarding to finally get pregnant after trying for so long. "Oh yeah, it feels like I'm on top of the world, really." "You better hope that the baby is yours." "Excuse me?" "What do you mean, Mom?" Well, doesn't it seem suspicious that the two of you started trying for a baby over a year ago, and just after Nancy started working, she got pregnant? Are you accusing me of cheating on Lucas? I mean, you said it, not me. Why in the world would you think that I would cheat on Lucas? Maybe you got frustrated with your inability to get pregnant, and to relieve the frustration, you used your coworker? Wow, you are jumping through hoops to get to that conclusion. Lucas, can you believe what your mother is accusing me of? Well, you aren't denying it. Are you serious? Do you really believe your mother over me? It doesn't hurt to just give me a simple yes or no for an answer. Wow. Okay. If you want an answer that bad, Lucas, I did not cheat on you at all. Does that stop you from being suspicious of me? Kind of. I can't do this right now. I'm going to go lay in bed for some time. I would appreciate it if you just didn't talk to me for a while. And Elaine, you are a real piece of work for even suggesting that I would cheat on Lucas when I have proven over and over again how much I love him. I ran to our room and locked myself in there. I cried myself to sleep that night. I couldn't believe that all it took for Lucas to shift his entire view of me was some words from his mother. Could he really not think logically on his own at all? Lucas didn't attempt to talk to me over the next few days. I didn't feel like talking to him because every time I saw his face, a fresh new wave of anger would wash over me, and I wanted to be nicer to him when I asked him why he did what he did. Eventually, Lucas gave in and approached me first. Hey, can we talk? I don't know. Are you going to accuse me of cheating on you again? There's no need to be salty about it. I'm trying to communicate right now. And if you don't want to, I can give you some more time. Fine. I'm sorry. I was being a jerk. I'd like to talk. All right. Well, first of all, how are you feeling? Physically, I feel great. Emotionally, I feel like I've been stabbed in the back. All right. Well, why is that? You can't be serious. I just want to understand you better. I know the question sounds stupid, but just go along with it, okay? Well, you had some nerve to believe your mother when she accused me of cheating. I've always been faithful to you, and you know your mother absolutely hates my guts. She wants you to be with someone else, and she's proven that she'll do anything to get me out of the picture. And still, you choose to believe her. I didn't actually believe her, though. You still had a brief doubt about my loyalty to you. That was why you asked me to either confirm or deny what Elaine was saying. If you trusted me 100%, you would never have even thought to ask me that. You have to admit that my mom had some point in her question. You do realize that she also indirectly insulted you, right? She essentially called you impotent. No, she did not. You can remain in denial for all I care, but I do not want you to ever question my loyalty again. Here, you can call all my male co-workers and ask them if I had any improper relationships with any of them. This is not necessary. No, Lucas, it is, especially since you think that I have it in me to cheat on you. Not only that, you think that I have it in me to trick you into raising another man's child. I'm not calling any of your co-workers. That's going to be embarrassing for both of us. What I do want, however, is for you to take a DNA test after the child is born, just to be sure. Excuse me? I will not do that. I get it. Your hormones are all over the place right now, but we will have this conversation after you give birth. For now, I want you to have a comfortable and easy pregnancy. Don't bring this up again. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but I honestly had no energy to fight back. The pregnancy was hard on me as it is, and I didn't need more stress. For the remaining length of my pregnancy, Lucas and I slept in separate rooms, although he still took proper care of me. What was new was Elaine came over almost every day, and the two of them talked for hours in Lucas's office. I would hear them speak to each other in hushed whispers, and I would feel hurt all over again at the way that Lucas betrayed me so easily. Finally, it was time to give birth. I struggled a lot, but I did give birth to a healthy baby girl. I lost consciousness for a few hours after birth, but when I finally came to and saw my baby for the first time, I stared in awe at how she looked like the spitting image of her father. My only thought at that time was that if Lucas still asked for a DNA test, then I would just leave him. I got discharged from the hospital a few days after giving birth, and I didn't want anyone to visit me for a month because I wanted to take that time to recover and bond with my child. Lucas remained quiet mostly, and we never addressed what happened before. Finally, I was ready to have our family come see the baby, and Elaine was the first to want to see her. Congratulations on giving birth. Thanks, Elaine. How was the process? Did it hurt? You've given birth before, Elaine. I'm sure you know what it feels like. Nancy, you can't speak to my mother that way. Speaking of parents, Lucas, sweetie, did she do it? Do what? No, she hasn't. Hello? I'm still in the room. Stop addressing me as she and just tell me what it is. Wow, someone's in a cranky mood. Mom was asking me if you did the DNA test of the baby as yet. I have not, and I will not either. So you're admitting to cheating on my son then? That's not true at all. I just think that if I take the DNA test, it'll break what little trust I had in Lucas. It's just going to prove that he believed I was capable of infidelity, and that is not who I want to be with. Well, not taking the DNA test makes me feel like you're hiding something from me. The only thing I'm hiding from you is how angry you've made me ever since I got pregnant. You've listened to every nonsensical word your mother's said, but you refuse to listen to a word that I've said. You've accused me of cheating on you, and you caused me so much stress that I had a very difficult birth. I've lost so much sleep because of you and your stupid accusations. Did you for once stop to think of me? No, because you only care about your lying, manipulative mother. Of course you're going to be this defensive. Have you seen your mother? I've heard enough stories about your mother's questionable history with men. I'm sure that she raised you to be just like her. You listen to me right now. You can insult me all you want, but I will not have you insult my mother. If we want to talk about parenting, why don't we look at yours? You've raised your son to be so distrusting and incapable of forming his own opinions without mommy's help. Your son would not even be alive if it wasn't for me, because you coddled him so much that he has no idea how to do something as basic as cook for himself. My mom did what she had to do to raise me, and if that is what I have to do with my child, then so be it. It'll be a cold day in hell before I even let you near my baby. Do not speak to me or my mother that way ever again. Before I could say another word, Lucas slapped me across the face. I stared at him in shock. Lucas had never been one to get angry. I always thought that he was a rather docile man, but to have him slap me like that was unacceptable. My ears were ringing. I could barely process what had happened before I felt Lucas hit me across the face again. Then I felt my hair get pulled back, and I opened my eyes to see Elaine's face close to mine. She told me to never talk to her with disrespect again, and then she slapped me. The two of them kept yelling at me, but I could barely make anything out because of the ringing in my ears. Eventually, after another hard blow to my head, they left me alone. I couldn't believe that I got beaten up. No one had ever laid a hand on me. Even my own mother never playfully smacked me. This was atrocious. My baby was wailing, so I made sure that there was no one in the house. I grabbed my child, got into my car so I could get to my mom's house. I called my mom to make sure she was home and told her I'd be there shortly. My mom opened her door to greet me warmly, but quickly looked horrified. Hi, sweet. What happened? Why is your face red and swollen? Can I please come in? Of course. Who did this to you? Lucas. What? Why would he hit you? Elaine put it in his head that the only reason I got pregnant was because I was cheating on him. Okay, I know this is very important, but I need to take pictures of your bruises right now. Is Nick okay? Do what you have to do, Mom. Nick's okay. He cried a lot on the way here, and I guess he tired himself out enough to fall asleep. Okay, now narrate what else happened. I was as gentle and firm as I could be with them when they asked me to take a DNA test to prove that Nick was Lucas's kid. Eventually, though, what is it? Elaine insulted you and said that you raised me to be promiscuous, and I kind of lost my cool on her. Oh God, did you hit her? No! You know I would never resort to violence. Okay, good, because that would not have made you look good. I just lashed out at her and insulted her parenting. Lucas did not like that one bit, so he slapped me. The next thing I knew, I was getting beaten up by both of them for insulting Elaine. Elaine grabbed my hair and slapped me before telling me never to disrespect her ever again. Oh God, sweetie, I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. I don't care what you say, but you are taking them to court, okay? I will not let you go through what I went through. You don't have to worry about a thing, though. Let me handle all the paperwork. I will make them pay for what they did to my precious child. My mom first made sure that I didn't have a concussion and then told me to get some sleep, while she handled taking care of my baby. I did just that. Over the next few days, I had no idea what my mom was doing because she refused to let me get stressed about anything. You see, the reason Elaine insulted my mom was because not only was my mom a single mother, but she did have a not-so-colorful past. My dad left us when I was still a baby. My mom got pregnant with me right after she graduated high school, and she had no degree to her name. Not to mention my grandparents disowned her when they found out she was pregnant, so she did what she had to do to earn money to keep both of us alive. She started making a lot of money by working as an escort. I know when you hear the word, a lot of things come up, but she did none of that. My mom was, and still is, a very attractive woman, and she's very charming. She has a way with her words that makes anyone agree with her. A lot of people, especially those in big positions, found out about her and began to hire her just to accompany them for business dinners and such. As a result, my mom got to forge a lot of connections in our city. My mom pretty much retired after I graduated high school and hasn't lacked money to date because of her connections. So I trusted her fully when she said she would handle things for me. About a week after I last saw Lucas and Elaine, my mom told me to get dressed up because we were going to a fancy restaurant to meet Lucas and Elaine. I knew better than to question my mom, but I was still terrified about the reason for the meeting. When we got there, Lucas and Elaine were dressed to the nines. I still remained on guard. Hi, Nancy. Hi, Lynette. Please, take a seat. Why don't you order something? The tab's on us. Why are you being so nice? Oh, we were always nice. You weren't nice to my face or my scalp the last time I saw the both of you. About that, we're sorry for how we treated you. We shouldn't have let our emotions get the best of us. You let your emotions get the best of you? That's your pathetic excuse? Well, she lashed out at us after we insulted you, which was fair because you are a wonderful woman who truly is an inspiration. I mean, your life story is just fascinating. Why are you suddenly praising my mother? You had no issue insulting her and me before. Insult? You must have misheard. I really am sorry, though, if it sounded like an insult. Lynette, you have to know that I didn't mean to insult you at all. I'm not here to get buttered up by you. Nothing you say or do is going to change what's going to happen to both of you. The fact is that you physically abused my daughter, and you are going to pay for it. Mom, what's going on? What do you mean? What I mean is that these two received court summons and are under investigation for abusing you and endangering Nick. I know you look down on my past, but you know what that past gave me now? All the highest connections in this state. We had no idea about how wonderful you are, Lynette. We really are sorry for the things we did and said. Please, just spare us this once. Why should I? You and your mother hit my daughter when you felt like she disrespected you. Why wouldn't I destroy you when you left visible signs of abuse all over my daughter's face? This pathetic attempt of yours to make peace won't work. I suggest you lawyer up and get ready to spend time in jail and a hefty amount in fines. Come on, Nancy, let's go. I had no idea about what had been happening, but seeing Elaine and Lucas treating my mom like she held their lives in her hand was the best form of revenge that I could have asked for. But that was not where it ended. My mom was not satisfied with that. She knew the best lawyer in the city, so she had him represent me in court. She had me file charges of domestic violence and child endangerment against Elaine and Lucas. The trial absolutely dragged Lucas and Elaine's reputation through the mud, because my mom knew quite a few influential journalists in our city. She had them cover the case, and that led to a lot of people finding out not only who Lucas and Elaine were, but also what they were capable of doing. Lucas and Elaine were both sentenced to 3 years in prison and were charged with heavy fines. On top of that, Lucas lost his parental rights and Elaine lost her grandparents' rights. They were also slapped with a restraining order that did not allow them to be within 100 feet of me or my child. By the time the trial ended, Lucas and Elaine were guaranteed a better life in prison rather than out here in the real world. Their reputation was so far gone that no one in their fields would want to employ them. They would be facing some real challenges when they got out, and really, the knowledge of that makes me incredibly happy. After everything finally died down, I treated my mom to dinner at her favorite restaurant and thanked her profusely for helping me out the way she did. She told me that seeing me hurt made her mother's instincts kick in, and she just blindly acted on those. Hearing that made me excited to experience these instincts with my child too. Of course, not for something as horrible as what I went through. Things are still a little rough for me right now because I'm juggling being a single mom and taking care of an infant, but at least I can sleep knowing that my child is not going to be harmed in any way. Thank you for listening. Hey, I'm Lizzie. I'm 26 years old and I just got married to the love of my life. But before I could get married, my sister tried to sabotage my relationship and insult me. But it backfired in the best way possible. Let me begin by telling you a little about my family. I'm the youngest of the family and I have one older sister, Dawn. Dawn was the first child, and my family, parents and extended family, pampered her senselessly when she was a child. As a result, she got dependent on all the attention and praise of my parents and the rest of my family. When I came around, Dawn struggled to grasp the fact that she was not the only child of the family. She would throw these insane tantrums that would eventually lead to everyone paying attention to her and neglecting me. It used to hurt at first, but eventually I learned to live with it. Nothing was really ever my own. Everything I had or did, Dawn also needed to have. Even my birthday parties were not mine. Dawn had to be celebrated for something at least. After enduring all of that for years, I practically ran out of the house when I was 18. Dawn continued to live with my parents and never got a job. They supported her and even postponed their retirement so she could continue living with them. I didn't say anything to them or her because I didn't want to be involved with them any more than I needed to be. In my second year of university, I met my now husband, Leo. Leo and I clicked immediately and we began dating shortly after. He was everything that I was looking for in a partner, and it also helped that he only gave me attention. After dating for a year, I decided to introduce him to my parents. I made sure that Dawn wasn't around because I didn't want her to create a scene. My parents loved him, and that was that. Dawn found out that I was dating someone eventually, and she threw a fit about it. In turn, my parents told me to never bring Leo around whenever she was around because she'd throw another fit. I was more than happy to oblige. So for the next 4 years, Leo and Dawn never met each other. After graduating, Leo and I moved in together and we focused on our careers. Leo got placed into a very good company and he worked really hard to secure himself a better position. He was one of the company's best assets, and he knew that if he played his cards right, he'd be able to get a high position. One of the many things he had to do to make sure he got the high position was traveling. Leo traveled a lot for work. His company not only had offices in many countries, but they also regularly held business meetings abroad to get new clientele. Leo was frequently out of the country around 2 weeks a month. Things were beginning to get hard for us because while I was understanding of what he was trying to do for his career, it still sucked because he was gone for half of the month and so we barely spent time together. One particular time, Leo took me out to dinner after he told me that he would be going on another business trip. He did it as an apology because he really did feel bad and I did not have it in me to take out my frustration on him. So while at dinner I asked him with resignation if he really had to go. Do you have to go on this business trip? Unfortunately, yes. If I go on this trip, I'll get a promotion that will set us up for life. I know, but you've been traveling a lot these past few months and I just miss you. I know, these past few months have been rough on me too, but once I get this promotion, I promise I'll be yours always. In fact, I actually do have something to ask you. Yes, what is it? You know that I'm working hard for a better future right now, but I want you to know that I'm working for a better future for us. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, and I want to do it in absolute bliss. So if there's one question that I want to ask you, it's this. Will you marry me? Oh my God, Leo, really? I meant every word I said. Of course I'll marry you, yes. I'm so lucky to have you by my side and I can't wait to spend the rest of my days with you. Ah, I'm so happy. I was such a nervous wreck. Why? I would never have said no. I know, but I just wanted things to be perfect. Well, it was. Good job, honey. Thank you, sweetie. There is one thing that I want to ask you too. Do you mind me telling my parents about our engagement while you're away on your business trip? Why? Well, my sister lives with them and she's practically going to throw a fit. I want to do things as gently as possible. Your sister is a menace. You shouldn't have to be tiptoeing around her because she's emotionally fragile. I agree with you. I just don't want this happy news to be tainted by a tantrum. I want at least some attention from my parents. Of course, hon. But when I get back, we're going to throw a proper party for our engagement. Of course. I was floating on cloud 9 for the rest of the dinner. I could not believe that Leo had finally asked me to marry him. And more importantly, I couldn't wait to spend the rest of my life with him. We enjoyed the rest of the time that he was there with me before he left for his trip by going to a resort and just relaxing. A day after he left, I decided to call my parents over to announce my engagement to Leo. I didn't invite Dawn because I figured if she took the news of Leo and I dating, well, after she heard it from someone else, she'd be the same way with the engagement. But my parents insisted on her coming along. I briefly considered just not telling them about the engagement then. But then I thought about how unfair it was. I was always planning my entire life around Dawn and her emotions. There was only so long that I could keep justifying things to myself by saying that I was just trying to avoid drama. So I decided to just announce it to all three of them. When they came over, Dawn made a remark about how lucky I was to have a boyfriend who was willing to pay my bills. I let the remark slide because I needed her in a good mood. My parents asked me where Leo was and I told them that he was away on a business trip. Dawn snickered at that and once again I let it go. I waited until dinner was done to tell the three of them that I had something to announce. I brought out a cake to celebrate it too. Dawn did not like that. She cussed at me before running away. What happened? Why did Dawn run off like that? Are you serious? Yes, I have no idea what's going on. You know how Dawn feels about the fact that she's still single. And what does that have to do with me? You just made a big show about your engagement. You made her feel so bad. I'm sorry she felt that way, but I'm supposed to never celebrate or announce any major milestone in my life because of Dawn's feelings? We're not saying that. All we're asking you to do is be more considerate in the way that you celebrate these milestones. I do not see the point to that. If Dawn feels so bad, she can come talk to me herself. I'm here, and fine, let's talk. Why do you always make everything about you? I can't ever have one night of celebration to myself. Do you always only celebrate things that you know I'm sensitive about? I could say that you purposely did that to hurt me. Dawn, I literally only celebrate big life events. You're telling me that I wasn't supposed to celebrate my graduation just because you dropped out of college? Next thing you know, you'll hate me for throwing a baby shower because you didn't get pregnant before me. It's ridiculous. You need help. Are you calling me crazy? No, I just want you to figure out how to deal with your own emotions without projecting them onto others. It'll make everyone's lives easier. Dawn does not make our lives harder. Stop kicking her while she's already down. No. You know what? It's okay. If she wants to play this way, I'm going to make her regret it. You better watch your back, Lizzie. I didn't see when Dawn came back into the room, but when I finally saw her face, I lost my head. All the years of pent-up anger that I didn't even know I had in me spilled out. I finally spoke about what had been going on in my mind, and of course Dawn did not take that well. She threatened me, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel scared of her at all. My parents, like they always did, ran after Dawn. I felt free. Nothing felt better than finally standing up for myself. On so many occasions, Leo had asked me to do that, but I never did it out of fear of Dawn. But when I told him about what I had done later on that night when we got on call, he was very proud of me. My parents never reached out to me about anything after I announced my engagement to them. I never reached out to them either because I figured that they took Dawn's side and that was how things always were, so I didn't care enough. However, about a week after I made the announcement, Dawn showed up at my door with a bunch of my family and friends behind her. Whoa, Dawn, what are you doing here? Hi, I brought Mom and Dad and a few friends along too. Okay, come on in, guys. Excuse the mess. So, Lizzie, how is the engagement going? Is it going well? What's going on? Remember how you humiliated me the day that you told Mom, Dad, and me that you were engaged? I didn't humiliate you. I just stood up for myself and told you to stop making your issues everybody's. Right, so you humiliated me. I'm confused. Is this supposed to be a way to get me to apologize, or do you just want an audience for when you make me apologize? Either way, I'm not apologizing for anything. I don't want your stupid apology. No, today I brought everyone here to expose your relationship. What? Yeah, that's right. The day that you announced that you're engaged, I couldn't help but feel like something was off. I mean, I never met your fiancé, and you never made the effort to let anyone see him. That's not true. Everyone here met him except you because you would have hated the fact that I'm in a relationship and you're not. What? Anyway, it doesn't matter because look at this picture. That's right, everyone. That's me with her fiancé. He's a liar and a cheater, and he cheated on you, Lizzie, because you are the ugly duckling of the family. He took one look at me and he knew he could do so much better than you. Why are you laughing? I can't help it. That's not my fiancé. Oh, don't try to brush it off and pretend it isn't him just because you don't want to be humiliated in front of everyone. I'm not doing that at all. That's my fiancé's twin brother. That's right, he has an identical twin, Jasper. And you know why my fiancé has never kept in touch with Jasper? Because Jasper is a criminal who is on parole right now. Looking at it though, he probably tricked his parole officer just so he could spend the night with you. What? Don't lie to me. Why do I have any reason to lie to you? You tried to humiliate me and it's just backfired in the best way possible. Maybe next time you'll think before you do something so stupid. Now, everyone's welcome to stay if they like, but Dawn, you need to leave. I couldn't help but laugh. I mean, I knew that I was supposed to be appalled, but I really couldn't believe how far Dawn would go just to be the center of attention and get the validation she so desperately craved. Hell, I couldn't believe that she even managed to get a hold of Leo's brother, Jasper. Jasper was convicted of robbing a bank and assaulting multiple police officers. Leo and his entire family disowned him, and it had been years since any of them spoke to or even heard from him. So for Dawn to get hold of him was truly a feat. But I spent the rest of the evening with my friends and family, all of whom couldn't stop looking at Dawn in disgust. Dawn eventually left when she saw that no one was giving her the attention she wanted. My parents didn't run after her for the first time, and that definitely made me raise an eyebrow. They didn't talk to me either, but I let it go. Leo got back the next day, and when I told him about what happened, he was angry at first that Dawn would do something so senseless and possibly jeopardize our safety. But I assured him that Jasper never came over to our place, and Leo eventually loosened up and laughed at the incident. A few days later, my parents called me and asked if Leo and I were free to grab dinner with them that evening. I was surprised that they would even ask, but told them that I wouldn't be coming if Dawn was there. They assured me she wasn't, so Leo and I went. My parents looked nervous when we saw them, so my curiosity only rose more. "Hi, Lizzie. Hi, Leo. How are you both doing?" "We're doing good. How are things at home?" "Yeah, I heard that quite a debacle happened. I hope Dawn's okay." "Well, she'll live." "Oh? How come you're not yelling at me for humiliating her?" "Look, we called both of you here because we wanted to apologize for Dawn's behavior." "We had no idea about what she was up to. She just told us to come along with her, and before we knew it, we were at your place and she was creating a ruckus." "You mean she was trying to insult me, my partner, and our relationship?" "Yes, we're really sorry that she did that. You know what? I'm actually surprised that the two of you even made the effort to apologize. And we're also sorry that we've been treating you in a manner that makes us apologize for a surprise. It's just that what you said when you announced your engagement, you know, about us not celebrating your graduation because of Dawn, really stuck with us. We didn't realize just how much we were neglecting your feelings. We always thought that you were so much more emotionally mature than Dawn, but now we realize that maybe we forced you to be that way. And that was cruel of us. Seeing Dawn try to purposely be with your partner and call you the ugly duckling while expecting everyone around her to applaud her made us horrified. We didn't realize just how much we messed up until then. We want you to know that we've decided to ask Dawn to move out. She needs to fend for herself in the real world. We kept her sheltered and pampered for so long that she has no sense of what was right and wrong. We're limiting communication with her too. Whoa, I fully appreciate both of you taking the efforts to introspect and apologize for your wrongs, but I don't think that cutting Dawn off is a healthy alternative. We know, but we're not fully cutting her off. We just want her to be independent and learn to deal with things without our help. She needs to learn to regulate her emotions, and staying with us is not how she'll learn. We want to make it up to you, and I know that money doesn't make up for our years of neglect, but please allow us to cover some costs at the wedding. Oh, you don't need to do that. Please, we insist. We want to make things right again. I promise you, Lizzie, that we're going to keep making an effort to make up for what we did before. All right then, I will admit that it will be weird to have both of you treat me normally, but I'll also do my best to not let the past affect how I treat you from now on. It took every ounce of self-control to not let my jaw actually drop when I heard my parents apologize. I didn't think this day would ever come. I was prepared to live the rest of my life in Dawn's shadow, but to see them actually work towards building our relationship was a breath of fresh air. My parents kept to their word and told Dawn about her deadline to get a job and move out. Dawn did not take that well and threw a fit, obviously. When she saw that my parents weren't budging, she called me to blame me for the way that her life was turning out. "Did you really have to humiliate me that way?" "What are you talking about? You made up lies just so you wouldn't be embarrassed that I exposed your fiancé to be a cheater. No, you're embarrassed because your plan failed. You think you did something earth-shattering, but really you just made yourself look like a bad person." "What are you talking about?" "Even if your plan worked and Leo was a cheater, you do realize that you went out of your way to be with someone who was taken. So? You'd be embarrassed and that's all that matters. But now no one is talking to me and it's all your fault." "No one's talking to you because you show them all that you would go to any lengths to get your way, even if that means seducing your sister's fiancé. You fed them all these thoughts. Nobody ever treated me this way before. Dawn, I hate to break this to you, but you've been treated like a princess all your life. Everybody cares so much about what you think, and that's why they walked on eggshells around you. You had to get your way or else you'd throw a tantrum, and while that behavior was cute when you were a child, when you're a 30-year-old woman, it's upsetting. Who are you to tell me what's right and wrong? I was the one that bore the brunt of your emotional instability. I never got to celebrate or be happy about anything in my life unless you got the same thing or you had something better. This is literally the smallest of inconveniences that you're lashing out this bad. If you truly care about your family and your reputation, you should reach out to everyone instead of harassing me. Why should I do it when you are the one that ruined my life? Okay, clearly you're not even listening to me, so I'm just going to go. I have nothing more to say to you. Bye. It was genuinely astounding that Dawn still saw nothing wrong with the way she acted. The very fact that she would rather blame me than look at what she did wrong told me enough about how she was never going to change. And there was no surprise when I found out that she was struggling even more after she left my parents' house. Dawn decided not to get a job after she had to move out. She decided to couch surf with various other family members and friends, but pretty soon all of them got tired of her mooching off of them. She still somehow managed to find people to keep helping her. I don't know what sob stories she was telling them, because periodically I would get hateful messages about how I was a horrible sister for manipulating my parents into kicking her out. I never entertained those messages, of course. I didn't see any more reason to expose Dawn for what she had done to me, because eventually the same people who texted me all of that would find out what a nightmare Dawn was to deal with. Dawn even went as far as to come back to my parents and tell them to take her back in because she knew that they felt horrible, and so she was going to forgive them and would give them a second chance. My parents laughed in her face and told her to get a grip on reality and to go get a job. My parents would defend me against family members who tried to slander my name, and I was grateful for that. Speaking of my parents, they really came through and took up a majority of Leo and I's wedding expenses. They went above and beyond to make up for their years of neglect. At the same time, they were understanding enough to not expect me to treat them like they were the best. I will say that I have begun to slowly warm up to them again because they really have been trying. Our relationship is slowly getting better, and I'm finally beginning to understand why my sister loved the spotlight. Don't worry, I won't ever come close to ever becoming like her. As for my wedding, it was an absolute blast. I uninvited Dawn, but I was a little paranoid that she would show up to the wedding, so I hired security and warned them to not let her in at all. It's a good thing that I did that, because she did try to crash the wedding, and the security guards managed to get her away from the venue. My wedding was still an absolute blast, and it's been one of the best days of my life. Things are looking up finally, and I can't wait to see where my life goes from here on. Leo and I are finally going on our honeymoon tomorrow, and I'm so excited. If I have the time to, I'll update you. And even if I don't, just know that things are going great. Thanks for listening. Hey there, I'm Sheila. I'm 26 years old, and I just served my mother-in-law and husband with the best revenge I could for their torture of me. But before I get into that, I want to tell you a little more about my husband, Justin, and I. Justin and I met in college. We were part of the same club and happened to strike up a conversation. We had really great chemistry, and I really liked him. He asked me out on a date, and I said yes. Obviously, I had a great time, and that led to only more dates with him. I found myself developing bigger feelings for him, and thankfully he felt the same way for me, so we made it official and we became a couple. In every sense of the word, Justin was great. He was understanding of my needs, and he was caring. He showed me he loved me in everything he did, and I knew that he was going to be the one that I married. But before we got to the point of marriage, we needed to introduce each other to our parents. My parents loved Justin and accepted him and the role he played in my life. The same could not be said about Justin's mother, Sandra. Sandra was a single mother. Justin's dad left the second he found out that Sandra was pregnant with Justin, and after that, Sandra raised Justin all by herself. So I understood why Justin respected his mother over everything and why the both of them had such a strong bond. My issue was obviously not with any of that. The first time I met Sandra, she looked me up and down and scoffed. She then proceeded to point out all my flaws, both physically and personality-wise. The entire time she did that, Justin never said a word. He just kept silent and let me deal with Sandra's mean remarks. I kept my mouth shut, not only because I had to show her respect, but because I was in so much shock that I didn't know how to respond. Justin and I got into an argument after that because I did not like how he did not stand up for me. Justin told me that Sandra was just being overprotective and did all that to make sure that I was the one for him. I thought it was particularly cruel, but I let it go. But then Sandra began inserting herself into our relationship. By this time, Justin and I had graduated. Around this time, I received some inheritance money that my grandparents had kept aside for me to be given to me only after I graduated. So I invested that money in a house. And Justin and I moved in together. Sandra would constantly come over and she'd make mean remarks about me whenever she saw me. I reached my limit eventually and told Justin to tell his mother to back off, or we were done. I don't know what or how he told her that, but she stopped coming over after that. Justin and I went right back to being great after that. In fact, we even got engaged. Sandra obviously had an issue with that, but we ignored her. We got married around 6 months after we got engaged. We were happy and super excited to spend the rest of our lives together. But all my dreams came crashing down when just 3 months after getting married, Sandra showed up at our door with many bags. "Oh, hey, Sandra, what are you doing here with all these bags? Are you going on a trip?" "Oh, no, I'm not. I wanted to come here." "All right, but why all the bags? Is everything at home all right?" "Everything's fine. I just realized that I needed to be here with Justin." "What? Why? Did something happen to him that I don't know about?" "It's not that. I just don't think that you're taking proper care of him." "Excuse me?" "And that's why I'm moving in." "I'm sorry, but you can't just move into someone's house like that." "You're right. But this is not just someone's house. This is my son's house, and what's his is mine, and therefore I get to do whatever I like here." "That is not how it works. And what do you mean by I don't take proper care of Justin?" "Look at him. He goes to work with the wrinkliest shirts, and he looks thinner than a stick. You don't look after him like a good wife should. Justin is a grown man who's perfectly capable of taking care of himself. He doesn't like me ironing his clothes. In fact, he doesn't even care about the look of his clothes. He got thinner because he's been running a lot and wants to start running marathons. I'm taking perfectly good care of him." "That is absolute nonsense. You don't know him as well as I do. You don't love him in the way that I do." "Of course I don't. That would be weird. You know, you could just talk to me about these things instead of just moving into our house, right?" "Oh, yeah? If I did that, you'd promise to do things the way I ask you and then only follow through for a maximum of a week. Then we'd be right back to square one. Moving in will allow me to take the best care of my son." "I don't think Justin is going to be happy about this." "Nonsense. That boy loves me and would never say a word against me." She was not wrong about that. Before I could stop her, Sandra let herself into my home. Justin was not at home, so I called him to tell him about his mother's intrusive behavior, and he promised me that he'd deal with her when he got back home. However, when he got back home, he never said a word to her. Of course, we fought it, and he told me that his mother was only looking out for him. I didn't have an issue with that. I had an issue with Sandra forcing herself into my home and treating me like I was not good enough. Justin assured me that his mother would leave after a few weeks. Against my better judgment, I believed him and let it go. Sandra became a nuisance. She would constantly critique everything I did and would always put me down for not being a traditional housewife. It was very funny coming from her, considering she herself had been a working woman, so I didn't understand why she had to put me down for working as well. I always kept my mouth shut and listened to everything she said. I did whatever she asked me to do, whenever she asked me to do it. I never complained, only because I was waiting for the day that she would leave. Except that it never did. The few weeks that Justin promised me turned out to be 3 months. I was reaching my limit with Sandra. One day, after a particularly tiring day at work, I came back home to Sandra yelling at me for not mopping the floor, and I snapped a little. "Sheila, why have you not mopped the floors? Do you want my son to be walking on filth?" "I had a really rough day at work." "Oh, boo-hoo. You think you're having a rough day? Then imagine what my son is going through." I don't mean to undermine Justin's work, but he works a desk job while I'm constantly running to and from sites in the heat. I barely get any time to sit and take a breath. I think I earn the right to say that I had a rough day. If you want to complain, then maybe you shouldn't have a job. If your job gets in the way of you taking care of my son, then just don't work. How do you think we're going to pay the bills? I earn more than Justin. Are you emasculating my son? I know that he's the one that pays for everything. The only reason that he uses your money is because he has to pay all the bills while you get to spend your money on yourself. Sandra, I really do not have the time or the mental capacity for an argument with you right now. If you don't want arguments, maybe you should just be a better wife. That's the reason I moved in with you both. Clearly, you don't care enough for my son. So you'll leave if I prove myself to be a good wife? Sure, but I doubt that you ever will be good enough. You do realize how messed up that is, right? You can't just force me to do things with the promise that you'll leave. If that is what it takes for you to be a better wife to my son, I don't care about how morally right or wrong things are. Now, are you going to mop the floors or not? I just came back home from a 10-hour shift. I didn't even get to sit down because you started yelling at me. At least let me catch a small break to eat. Those are privileges that are earned. You do your work as a good wife and then you get to rest. And what will happen if I say no? I will make you pay for it. I'm too tired of your nonsense. I'm going to bed. Good night. The audacity that Sandra had to assume that I did nothing was astounding. She had no idea how hard I worked. Look, I would never underappreciate Justin's work, but he did not earn anywhere close to what I made. And on top of that, I was the one that paid the majority of the bills. Sandra had no idea about what the inside of our relationship worked like, and she had some gall to expect me to do even more work after I got back home. She did make my life even more hellish after that conversation. She would purposely make food only for her and Justin, or only clean their messes and leave mine, or even just make my messes a lot worse. She would yell at me for the tiniest things and even went as far as to convince Justin to not talk to me for a week after she and I had another fight. I would talk to Justin about it, but while he would agree that his mother was being a bully, he would never say anything to her. I let it all go and focused on doing my own thing, but then I started to notice several Word documents go missing. I would miss important deadlines because I would never be able to find my things. It got to a point where I was told that if I messed up one more time, I'd be fired. It didn't take a genius to figure out who was messing with me, so after I was warned at work, I came back home and lost my cool on Sandra. "Are you messing with my paperwork?" "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Don't try to act like you don't know what I'm talking about. I told you that you'll pay for not listening to me." "Do you have any idea what you're doing?" "No. Do you have any idea what you're putting my son through?" "What are you talking about?" "My son has to live in filth and do his own laundry because you can't do your duties as a wife." "Sandra, I'm at risk of losing my job because of you. How are Justin's issues worse than mine?" "Good, then you can finally treat my son right. My son is going through so much more than you can imagine." "If he was, he talked to me. He has not said a word as yet, so I don't see why you're telling me this." "It's because you've put him in a position where he can't ever say a word against you. You did this to him." "I have never once even implied that he has to be scared to come to me about his issues. You're just inserting yourself into our relationship." I have to. My son can't stand up for himself, so as his mother, I'm doing it for him. You're standing up for nothing. There's nothing wrong. In fact, the only thing wrong is you, because of your meddling. We have absolutely no time for each other. Good. I don't want my son spending time with his no-good wife. Okay, you know what? You can get your way. If you don't want him spending time with me, so be it. But don't expect me to do my wifely duties when he won't do his husband's duties. You're lucky to have my son for a husband. He does everything for you, and you can't even do something as small as his laundry. Whatever, just stop messing with my work, because if I lose this job, Justin and I will be on the streets. And I don't think you want your precious baby to be on the streets, do you? Are you threatening me? Think whatever you want. But if I catch you messing with my work again, I will do something that will have you begging me for mercy. Sandra went crying to Justin about what I'd said, and he berated me for talking to his mother that way. But I was so angry that I didn't say a word to him. I kept my word and made sure everything was divided. I watched as for the next month and a half, Justin and Sandra struggled to juggle between meals and paying for half of the household expenses. Sandra was too proud to apologize to me, and she made sure that Justin never apologized either. Eventually, I couldn't see both of them starving themselves, so I caved and decided to go back to the way things were, but not before talking to Justin about how upset I was with his mother and that I expected him to ask her to move out. Justin, I've kept my mouth shut about your mother for a really long time, but I've reached my limit with her. What are you talking about? How do you not see the way she bullies me? Oh, come on, it's not that bad. Are you serious? I never can catch a break because she's always yelling at me to do something or the other. It's come to a point where I do nothing outside of work and household chores. It's been 3 months since I even went to meet some friends. Look, you know my mom has some very traditional values. You just have to get used to it, especially now that she's staying with us. You mean since she's forced herself into our house and our lives? She just loves me a lot and only wants the best for me. I know, I got that very clearly, but that isn't an excuse to treat me like crap, especially under my roof. You mean our roof? Your mom has made it crystal clear that you and I don't share things. And since you never speak up or stand up for me, this house is mine. You can't punish me for what my mother does. You think I want this? You have no problem when she bullies me and when she messes with my things. The day that you stand up for me, we'll be sharing everything equally. So what? Are you going to split everything now? If that's what it takes for you to stand up for me and throw your mother out of our house, sure. How can I just throw my mother out like that? I hate to put you in this situation, but you need to choose between me or your mother. You can't do that. You're putting me in an impossible situation. Am I really, Justin? I'm not asking you to stop talking to your mother. All I'm asking for you to do is tell her that she can no longer live in my house because of how she's been treating me. That's so cruel. I never expected you to do this. What's even more cruel is watching your mother torture your wife and still not speaking up. She's been messing with my work, and I told her that if I catch her doing it again, I will make her pay for it. I'm giving you the same warning. If you don't speak to her and get her to stop before she does something worse, I will make you pay for it too. I hated that I was putting Justin in this position. I really loved him, but I also knew that I did not deserve to be treated this way. Justin and I didn't speak to each other for a long while after that, but I still knew that he never spoke to his mother about her behavior. Sandra's treatment of me only got worse. She made my life absolute hell, and it took everything in me not to snap. She did not realize just how much I loved her son to be able to bear with her. But then she messed with my work again. Since I caught her before, I decided to be smart and install cameras around my office. I made sure to confine all my work-related items in there, so if she ever did mess with it, I'd have proof. One day, after another particularly bitter fight with her, I went to take a shower. Sandra took that time to walk into my office and rip up the project papers of one of my biggest clients. When I went into my office after my shower, all I saw was a mess of ripped up paper all over my floor. I saw red. Thankfully, I had backup saved on my laptop, but I was not going to let her go. I didn't confront her because I saw no point in it. I decided that I was done, and I called up one of my friends, Leroy, who was a lawyer. I explained my issues with Sandra and Justin with him, and he told me that he'd come over the next day to talk in detail about it. Leroy showed up the next morning, and Sandra was the one that opened the door to him. Justin joined her shortly after to see who was at the door. Who are you? Oh, I'm Sheila's friend and her lawyer. Hold on. What do you mean that you're her lawyer? What he means is that I'm suing both of you. What? Why are you suing us? Sandra, you messed with my job once again, only this time I was smart enough to install cameras in my office. I have proof of you stealing and ripping up my project plans. That's hardly a reason to sue me. Oh, that is. What you did right there was damage to property, and I'm also evicting both of you. What? What do you mean that you're evicting us? This is Justin's house too. You can't do that. Oh, your precious son didn't tell you? I bought this house with my money, and it's only my name on the deed and title. I have been paying the mortgage and for all the upkeep. Your darling, hard-working son hasn't paid a cent towards this house. Is what she's saying true, Justin? Yeah. And you've been harassing me for months, causing me mental distress, affecting my work and my pay. Okay, look, can we come to a negotiation of sorts? Absolutely not. You put Sheila through hell, and no amount of negotiation will come close to what she deserves to get out of you. So what? You expect us to pay her as reparation? Oh, absolutely. But I don't have any sort of money to pay her. That's why we're taking you to court. The judge will help decide how to sort this out. Sheila, you're taking this too far. I warned both of you about what would happen if you mess with me again. Neither of you listened. Now you have to pay for the consequences. Let's go, Leroy. We have more things to discuss. The both of them just stared at me in shock. But I walked away and took Leroy with me into my office. We worked out all the legalities, and Leroy told me that he'd file the paperwork as soon as he could. He assured me that in a week or so, I'd be able to hand an eviction notice to Justin and Sandra, and they'd be summoned to court for everything else. I also obviously filed for a divorce. I wanted nothing to do with Justin. I was ecstatic to finally be done with the two of them. In the week that I waited for the eviction notice, Justin and Sandra kept approaching me about dropping everything, but I refused to budge. I had been nice to them for so long, and even after I repeatedly told them that I did not like the way I was being treated, they never listened. Why would I listen to them now? I could tell that what I did was affecting them a lot. I began noticing how both of them were barely eating, and both had dark eye bags from lack of sleep. I even heard them get into a fight where Justin tore into Sandra for making his life miserable and ruining the one good thing he had. It was sad to see that it took me doing all this for him to finally stand up for me. But it was too little too late, and I was already set on leaving all of this behind. After I handed them the eviction notice, I moved into my mother's place until they cleared out. I gave them a month because I still did feel some pity on them. Aside from that, they also received the court summons, and after weeks of trial, they were ordered to pay me $50,000 in reparations. I don't know what kind of payment they settled on, but I was glad that my suffering was not all in vain. Sandra and Justin moved out before the court order came, and I finally got to live in my house without any conditions. The divorce is now underway, and I'm going to make sure that everything is divided equally. Justin tried to ask for alimony, but that was quickly shot down when the judge found out what he had done to me. Sandra, of course, never learned her lesson and still texted me to tell me what a horrible person I was to put her son in such a horrible position. She blamed me for her deteriorating relationship with Justin, and I honestly couldn't help but laugh. I saw no point in explaining to her why she was wrong because she clearly didn't see any fault in herself after everything that happened. So I just blocked her, and I'm moving on. It'll be a while before the divorce is finalized, but all I know is that I'm finally living happily. I got my revenge and I got my freedom. Life can't get better than this, eh? I'm only looking forward to what more I can do now that I'm not being held back by people. Wish me all the best of luck.